Air dry clay. I absolutely love this stuff, and there are so many different projects you can create with it. So let's get started and hop into the video. Today I have a silicone mould making kit, and I'm going to use this alongside the air dry clay to make some moulds for our air dry clay. Some of our pieces might be quite intricate and take quite a while to make, so what I want to do is try and be able to duplicate these over and over again in a much simpler, quicker and easy way. So I'm going to show you how we can do this with our silicone mould making kit and our air dry clay. I have a 2-part silicone rubber by Let's Resin. So first of all, we're going to start off with our air dry clay and make something nice and intricate with it. The silicone mould making kit does actually say not to use sculpture clay as the master cast within the silicone, but in this video I'll show you how I make it work. I absolutely love working with air dry clay, but I do find it a little bit monotonous sometimes when I have to create the same thing over and over again. So this little technique actually helps us do that and saves us time and our effort, and you get a really beautiful result at the end. As you can see, I've rolled my air dry clay into lots of thin coils, and I'm going to make this into a lovely delicate flower. I chose to make a delicate flower just as an example to show the details that we can hopefully achieve with the silicone mould. Maybe as a beginner you could start off with some simple shapes. Sculpt the air dry clay as usual, and you can use a paintbrush with just a tiny little bit of water on, and then here I have some wooden sticks and I'm adding the details to the petals. Finally, smoothing everything down with just a tiny bit of water on my smooth paintbrush. Attach any extra bits of clay with the score and slip method, as I do with the rest of my videos. You can see lots more inspiration and things to make over on my channel, and maybe you can make some silicone moulds from these to replicate your items. You now need to leave that to dry fully and make sure none of it curls up, so you can press it down as it dries to make sure it stays flat. We can use any of these air dry clay pieces to make some silicone moulds, and I've made a lovely little owl that I'm also going to create a mould out of. Before we move on and use our silicone rubber, there's one incredibly important stage, and you really mustn't miss this out. We need to fully waterproof and coat these air dry clay pieces, like I did with this bird. Several layers of polyurethane varnish or something similar is needed for this, but you do need to do quite a few coats to make sure they are fully waterproof. My air dry clay flower is now fully dry, and I can take a little bit of sandpaper or a nail file and neaten up the edges. And my bird and owl are ready to go. To house the silicone, I like to use a cookie cutter, and you can use any shape and size you can find or have. Then find something like this plastic lid to recycle as the base. Then find a cookie cutter that is a bit larger than it. That one's just a little bit on the small side, so I'll go for this next size up. If you had a little plastic container the right size, you can also use this. You can glue the master pattern down with some strong super glue, or for extra speed I just like to use a glue gun. Just in the centre there, so that it won't actually come into contact with the silicone, because you can't use hot glue with silicone. You can also use double-sided tape for this. Do the same for all your pieces once they're fully sealed and watertight. Delicate pieces like this need to be fully secured to the base, so I'm just using some glue, some white craft glue, and sticking this onto my plastic. Double-sided tape would have just been a little bit easier for this one. I've left it to dry completely, and the next step is also a really important step. You need to make sure that that cookie cutter is fully sealed onto the plastic. I like to use some hot glue and then make sure I squeeze it down into all of those cracks and gaps. If you have any gaps, the silicone will escape through there. The silicone mould kit comes as a part A and a part B, which needs measuring into equal measures and stirring together thoroughly. This one is to be measured by weight, so just check if your one is to be measured by weight or by volume. If measured by weight, it's much easier to do it on an electric scale like this. So add A and B in equal measures. You just sort of have to guess how much in volume as you see it as to how much you might need. And the more you do this, the more you'll become familiar with how much you need for the final mould. Here I'm using 28 grams of part A and 28 grams of part B. Stir the mixture thoroughly for about 5 minutes. This silicone has a working time of about 40 to 50 minutes, so you have plenty of time to get on with your project. Other silicones cure much faster, so you don't have much time to work with them, so I really like this one. Pour the silicone into the container nice and slowly. This helps prevent bubbles. You can see here I have a nice fine trickle of silicone into the mould. Pour the silicone into the container over the top of the whole item inside and make sure it's then at least another 1/4 inch thicker and higher over the top. Once it's poured, you will start to see the bubbles rise and release at the top. I now leave mine to set and cure for a full day, although it may take longer than this. Make sure you protect your work surface and also wear protective gloves. I've left these for 24 hours. I'm going to see if they're set. And I can see it's not quite set actually, so I'm going to leave that in there just a little bit longer. You can release the silicone from the mould if you wish, and then remove that hot glue from around the edge of your cookie cutter, ready for you to use it for next time. I made a few more moulds, including one for my bird pin badge. While the flour is still drying, I'll show you with some air dry clay how we can quickly make some more pin badges. My silicone mould is fully cured and ready to go, and I'm forming a small piece of air dry clay into a shape similar to the mould, and then using my thumb and really pressing that down into all of the cracks. You can really press down into this and the silicone moves along with you, but it gets down into all the detail. I added just a little bit too much there so I could take a bit away. Then I continue pressing it in for not very long at all, and just add a little bit of water on my finger and smooth out the surface. As easy as that, we can now release the clay from the mould. You can leave it to dry for just a little bit if you wish, but I prefer to take them out straight away and carry on. Add a tiny bit of water and smooth them out once more. My trick then for getting all of the pieces the same size is to weigh your air dry clay piece while it's still wet, and then measure out that same quantity of clay, and then you can push these into your mould and they should all be exactly the same. And this is a really fantastic way to duplicate those air dry clay pieces over and over again, really quite quickly and easily. As you can see here, it doesn't take many seconds to fill that mould. I can then let all of these dry and paint them all lovely. You can of course use these moulds for polymer clay or resin, and there's lots of different other clays like this Smarter brand, and we can get lots of colours with this, and it's really wonderful and durable as well. I do apologise if my throat has been a little hoarser than usual today. It'll be back to normal for the next video. Going back to the air dry clay flower I made, I don't think I sealed the air dry clay enough, and so some of that moisture has escaped and gone into the silicone, and it's made it all loose and watery still at the top and a bit sticky, and so it hasn't been able to cure properly. So that goes back to the air dry clay needs to be 100% waterproof before we can use it in the silicone. I also found the smaller details didn't come out as well, so you would be better with an epoxy resin that is a putty, and you can do this and it cures really quickly, and you just press it into your air dry clay and create your mould that way. The silicone kit worked really well for these birds in this really simple shape, so I do recommend when you first try this out, if you want to, then you choose a really simple and basic shape. I'm painting these up now with some acrylic paints, these lovely acrylic paints from Elephant Art. I'll put the links for the silicone mould kit and all the other products in the description below. I'm going to turn these little birds into some more pin badges. Please come and have a look over on my Instagram accounts and have a look at the final badges. I will do some more projects on here with the silicone mould making kit, and I'll show you how we can get some more intricate designs like this. It's all about having a play and being really creative, seeing what works for you and what you enjoy. I really hope you enjoyed that and it gave you some inspiration. Please do like, subscribe and comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.